with that, we're going to actually change directions and have Mike talk a little bit some of the mobile stuff that he's observing.
Sure, thanks, Tom. So what you see here is fresh forecast data. As many of you know, we do a local media forecast twice a year. The most recent one just came out, and I'm in charge of the mobile portion of that. So what you're looking at is actually the mobile U.S. ad spending and the overall piece, not just the location-targeted piece. So we expect that to grow from $13.25 billion this year up to almost $42 billion in 2019, and there's a lot of reasons for that, which I won't go into now. What I want to zero in on is the location-targeted piece, and that's going to grow from about 32% of the total to 43% of the total by 2019, and that's largely being driven by usage. Our data indicate that a lot of mobile usage is location-oriented. Another key factor there is that advertiser demand is following behind that usage and shifting ad dollars accordingly. And then the third reason is mobile ad performance when location-targeted strategies are done and done effectively. So a lot of advertisers are seeing the effects of that, and the other benefit there is that a lot of this advertising and these ad units are demanding premiums because of that higher performance. So that higher premium contributes to some of these dollar share shifts. Now, I spend a lot of time talking about those factors, so I'm not going to go too into those. One thing I want to talk about, if we go to the next slide, is that we further subdivide that location-targeted portion to where it's coming from. And that includes both national advertisers that do a lot of location targeting to reach local audiences, and there's a lot of ways that's playing out, and then also SMBs. Now, at these early stages of mobile advertising, it's primarily the former. So it's primarily the national advertisers who have the benefit of large marketing departments, dedicated resources, higher budget. Conversely, you have SMBs that are traditionally slower to adopt emerging media, and mobile certainly is an emerging media in advertising terms. So right now, the SMB share of that localized ad spend is about 10%. But the interesting thing is we see it growing to about a third of the overall localized spend by the end of our forecast period, and that's going to come about from growing from a small base and also the natural evolution of SMBs. And it's interesting when you look at this. If you look at Tom, you mentioned our overall local media forecast numbers being about $137 billion right now, and 50 billion of that is SMBs. Right. So that's about 36%. So if you look at this growth, in mobile, the SMB share is approaching a level where it's proportionate to that overall market due to the natural kind of adoption patterns of SMBs. And we're going on a lot of the stuff they're telling us in our survey data, that they're shifting dollars into mobile. Some of the things that you didn't show, but it's certainly present in our SMB forecast that we go by, which is that a lot of the types of leads that SMBs want and value are things like phone calls and traffic, foot traffic. So these are the types of outcomes that we're seeing from mobile advertising when done right. So one final thing I'll say in kind of accelerating a lot of this is that it's the offerings of kind of low barrier solutions for SMBs to start to add mobile in their local media mix. And that's things like what Google's doing with self-serve and AdWords and enhanced campaigns in bundling mobile, but also what a lot of the folks in this room are doing around local sales and bundling and pushing mobile advertising at that SMB level. And two companies I'll call out there specifically that are doing this to, I think, the most substantial levels, and by substantial I mean dollars, is YP and Yelp. And the other reason I call out those two companies is that we're going to have both of them on stage tomorrow to talk about how they're doing that. So if you're interested in this topic, that'd be a good session to attend.
And what about social and how it fits with mobile?
Oh, absolutely. So you know, when we do our forecasting, a lot of it is done by looking at ad units and ad rates and all of that stuff and doing the math. And one of the formats that's actually growing to a great degree is native social advertising. And we hear a lot about Facebook. Facebook now, 63% of its advertising revenue now comes from mobile. So we're seeing them experiment and really start to see success with formats that are socially oriented. So in-feed native advertising, it's also called, where the ad unit is almost additive as opposed to disruptive to the overall experience. It merges with the experience. And a lot of that is happening in social context. At the SMB level, we're seeing some interesting things happen with that kind of native social advertising where SMBs can take part of that conversation. So instead of a traditional ad buy, it is kind of taking part of this kind of Facebook feed-like conversation, listening to what their customers are saying, adding comments, just being part of that conversation. And that's all within that social native venue. Big part of the mobile ad growth.